Today we're going to be breaking down XRP, Ripple, and some very interesting news that could be happening. You guys don't want to miss this one. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into Tech Path. Let's jump into it. I do want to thank our sponsor today, and that is Uphold. This is a place where you can actually go out there, put a little XRP into your Uphold account, but you can also do some other things over there, and that is earn up to 4.5% APY on your U.S. dollar balance right now. That's how much they're paying if you deposit dollars into Uphold. The cool thing about Uphold, if you've never been over there, is this is a company who goes out there, finds the best rate for you, allows you to go out there, even earn some additional rewards on a lot of your different crypto assets. It's very easy to get started. Use our link down below. You'll get some special offers to get going. As you guys know, XRP, the Bitcoin conference, the Solana event, all happening here in May. I will be at this event right here at XRP Las Vegas on May 30th through the 31st. And today I wanted to bring in Bradley Kimes, who's the event director and organizer, to kind of break down some things that are happening within the Ripple ecosystem. Bradley, it's great to have you on the show.
Paul, thank you for having me, man. It's great to have you at XRP Las Vegas.
It's going to be fun. I've already seen and talked to quite a few people that will be there. It's going to be interesting in terms of some of the topics. I'll be moderating a couple panels, very intriguing discussions, a lot of really good gets in terms of the people. Bradley, when you look at the layout of not only the people, the companies that will be involved, some of the biggest capital companies out there, anything that you're expecting in terms of maybe news or, interesting conversations that may happen?
I do think, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody else, or any of the companies or sponsors that are participating, but I do know that some of the sponsors that will be attending have some really incredible things planned. And if history is any measure, last year and every year, we've always had something on stage be breaking news, something that's being shared for the first time. And that is absolutely an exciting possibility. And I think you're going to hear some incredible things this year too.
So some possible mic drops. When you look at, you guys have been holding this event for what, 3 years?
Yes, this will be our third year this year.
What has been the biggest thing that has come out of previous events? Was there anything that you remember that was like, hey, this was a big moment for Ripple and the XRP ecosystem?
I think it was, just the support of the XRP community coming together. XRP community, unlike any other community, has been sued, right? We've had a lot of hate and vitriol on social media, and we've been through so much that I believe unknowingly this conference has helped to really bring us together as a collective, because we have been through 4+ years of a lawsuit, and you certainly know the history. You've done an amazing job covering. But I think that's the biggest thing that really was not even thought about. And you'll see there'll be over 1,000 people at this event, and they're all incredible people, and they're all super knowledgeable. And they realize that not only is it a chance to network at this event, but you're going to hear things on stage over the course of those 2 days that you will not hear anywhere else.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the special attention that I think a lot of people need to pay to major events like this one, is that when you get a chance to go to these, and of course we'll cover it, but there's a lot of difference between hearing about it afterwards and hearing and seeing it happen live. In some cases, this can mean, some impact even on your own portfolio, because you're thinking through things that a lot of these people are talking about. And a lot of times when I'm on stage, and also when I hear people that we're interviewing, a lot of times people, they want it to come out, even though they may not want to say it, but they want stuff to come out. You can kind of read between the lines. So that's kind of what I'm looking for right now. Speaking of that, there are some interesting things brewing here that I want to present to you and the XRP community around our research, because we think there might be something around this whole stablecoin movement that is happening right now. We've saw Coinbase, of course, accelerating their movement within USDC. And of course, as you can see, Coinbase is now, guess what, coming in with wrapped XRP very soon. So here is something that I think is happening. And we think that Meta is in a position right now, because Mark Zuckerberg has already talked, I've got a clip here in a second I'll play for you. He's already talked about getting more involved in stablecoins. And it has been, you remember, Libra was kind of a miss because it was way too early. But now Circle has come to the game, Jeremy Allaire. We're starting to see RLUSD make its play. PayPal is in it. We're seeing now Robinhood going for it. Almost everybody is making a play at stablecoins. Meta was kind of one of the early guys out there. And if you look at some of the people and hires, I want to show you guys something. This is Ginger Baker. Now, she is the VP of product now at Meta. The difference here is this lady's background comes very interestingly tied into the Stellar board and foundation, a bank, First Horizon, and then also Plaid. She spent 4 years over there. Plaid, a major, payment processor. All right, let me bring up one other little point here that everybody's kind of focused in on, and that was head of demand liquidity. All right, and this was from 2019 to 2020. So here's the theory that you look at where Ripple and Meta may be creating some sort of intersection. This next clip that I want to get to, I want your opinion on this because Mark Zuckerberg says some very interesting things, and he's talking about these acquisitions that he's done and that other companies have done just here recently. Take a look.
The thing that's complicated for us is we deliver our services through our competitors, right? So Apple and Google, probably two of our biggest competitors. It is awkward. At some point we ran this calculation and we're like, all right, if we were able to do all the things that we thought were good, I think we might be twice as profitable as a company or something as we are now. Mostly, I honestly get more offended by the consumer things that we just think are good that they just block us from doing.
You just can't do the consumer.
Yeah, so as you know, sending money to people across lines, country lines, is surprisingly, crazily difficult. We're not a financial services company, but it just seems like this thing is so broken that someone needs to build a stablecoin, and the thing that needs to exist is basically it needs to have a certain amount of scale in order to become a standard. Honestly, what you're doing makes much more sense than what we were doing. I think these things are very DNA driven. You guys are I think the
we
best.
Think about it a lot,
What you guys did with buying Bridge, it makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's going to work. Good news is you have reincarnated the idea with Bridge into something that is going to do much better because now there's actually a company that is fully focused on this that's going to absolutely nail the opportunity globally.
We are seeing a lot of stablecoin growth.
All right, so just to give you kind of a background on that, Bradley, when you look at what Zuckerberg was talking about, that was Stripe that they were talking with at a Stripe event. And Stripe acquiring Bridge, stablecoin connection for Stripe payments. Meta is in a position right now that he said that within the interview there, is they have seen this maybe as a reincarnation of the idea of an acquisition. So could we see a potential end around here with someone like Meta going after Ripple? And you look at the potential Ripple IPO valuation that's all been talked about, and you kind of compare this, because this would open up two things for Meta. First of all, even Zuckerberg just said that it would double their profit if they could get into cross-border payments. We have never seen that kind of volume in crypto before, the amount of volume that we could see coming in off of something like Meta. What are your thoughts about that as a move if Meta were to try to make a play for Ripple, primarily because of the stablecoin?
I think just the idea of this it all makes sense, right? I mean, whether it goes down or not is another matter, right? But at the end of the day, I think what you're pointing to that sticks out to me is the macro trend we're in right now, which is mergers and acquisitions. Mm-hmm. And whether it's Ripple or whether it's Meta targeting them or what have you, I see this is the moment where special things like this can take place. Because, to the point that you were making, Zuckerberg was talking to Stripe. I believe, my memory serves me correctly, Stripe holds I don't know if it's 1 to 5% of all XLM, Stellar, right? Mm-hmm. So they're definitely planning on a play, right? And I know most people may not remember, but Elon Musk comes from PayPal originally, in the PayPal mafia, right? And payments, and he's getting ready to turn X into a payments platform. So Meta has to have a plan. Now, if that plan involves trying to acquire Ripple, I don't know, but I do think that's what's so special about this moment that we're in, just like Ripple trying to acquire Circle, right? It's like all of these things happening tell me the larger sign is that this isn't turning around and going the other way. This is
Right.
going exactly the way we want it to go. The Magnificent Seven is about to come into play here. They're about to bring massive amounts of crypto users that don't know they're crypto users yet, because they're going to push an update on everybody's phone and platform, and instantly you have a crypto wallet. You just have to start using it.
So Bradley, do you get a chance to see the community up close at these events? Do you think that the XRP community would embrace something like that, an idea that where Ripple and Meta were to create some sort of, whether it's a merger, an acquisition, a joint venture, what would you think the community would do? Would they be for it or against it?
I think they would be for it because, first of all, I wouldn't see Brad Garlinghouse or anyone at Ripple making any kind of a shortfall decision, right? Whatever they do, it's going to be in the best interest of Ripple and pursuing the mass adoption of the innovation and the technology. And my mind just comes back to that, right? It's like, well, what's the best way? Because what's so special about the XRP ledger besides the scalability, efficiency, and the cost effectiveness, right? And those things. The real special sauce in there is the decentralized exchange built into the layer one, which makes it a decentralized exchange for the world, right?
Yeah.
Not a New York Stock Exchange for the world. So in my mind, I see the goal and the vision of Ripple and the XRP ledger's use much larger than Meta. And that's a huge use.
Wow. Okay.
But at the same time, Paul, I also happen to believe that we could see the digital asset stockpile used to price control digital assets that they choose by buying and selling those assets the same way that they control the price of oil globally, right? Or the way they control the federal interest rate.
Yep. Well, and I think the key here, when you look at the uptake of critical mass, because another thing that Zuckerberg said that is very important within that interview is he said scale. And you think about where USDC is right now. I wouldn't say they're at scale because it's still very limited in use. If you look at just the comparison, Ripple edges closer to making history in its 12-year journey. This is 6.5 million holders, all right? So this is already critical mass and scale, especially within the ecosystem of just Ripple and XRP. Imagine what that would look like if cross-border payments were enabled on Meta through the XRPL and the ability to possibly use RLUSD as a mechanism for settlement. All of this would the volume would be unbelievable in comparison because of just what Zuckerberg was saying. He says doubling his profits, so can you imagine what the throughput would be? So pretty crazy stuff.
I think you have some good stuff there. I think there's definitely a potential pathway forward for them to work in some shape, way, or form. I really do believe that. And, to point out just something you brought up, Circle, for a second there, one of the things I think is interesting about Circle is that, why do companies IPO? They IPO to broadly speaking, to raise funds and capital. And just a few weeks before they announced that IPO, they said they were going to launch their own payments platform, which they don't have a native payments platform. And then I thought to myself, well, then here another week or two later, we hear about the IPO, and then we hear about the offer to buy them from Ripple. And it's interesting to me because you start asking yourself, wow, understanding Circle's business model, that if the interest rates get cut so that the president can refinance the debt, that's going to squeeze the margin of Circle leading into an IPO. So you wonder, and they don't have a payments platform. So then you start thinking, wow, that offer from Ripple might be pretty good, because all of this stems back to what I think you've laid out wonderfully here today. It's these massive platforms that have the ability to tap into this innovation, starting with stable coins and then spreading deeper into crypto, and getting the friction of the payments off of them and turning it into a profit-making part of their business. That is going to be embraced at a magnitude we've yet to see, I believe.
Well, and I think what could be happening, we'll talk about DeFi here in a second, but when you look at the banking ecosystem, and we'll talk about stablecoins in the sense of the banks possibly holding this up, but to your point, is that maybe we are in a dynamic shift right now where a lot of these major platforms become somewhat neobank-like, that are essentially are online banks giving out the ability to somewhat supplant what the traditional banking system is up against. When you look at DeFi, and this is something that is, many people would just say, well, yeah, but DeFi is not necessarily growing that fast with XRPL. If you look at it right now, 10 million XRP deposit cap now reached. Everybody's kind of going in with the idea of it, but it's still very low if you look at other DeFi ecosystems out there. Do you think this is too slow right now in terms of DeFi for what's happening with Ripple?
I don't, and I believe that I can explain why it's happened. You know, let's look at the most successful DeFi networks. Oh, that's right. They were never sued
Yeah.
for over 4 years, right?
Pent up
If
demand.
if you're wondering why, you know what I mean, that the other networks are having a great DeFi run, it's because they were never sued for over 4 years, right? And obviously erroneously, I believe. So, you know, to me, like what people are seeing when they look at DeFi is I think you're just looking at a network that's coming out of a 4-year nightmare that should have never, ever happened.
Yeah, and a couple of things that are happening here. Obviously, Xiamen Wallet, Bifrost now coming into, now we'll see more decentralized finance coming in from XRP with yields. So that's an advantage. Now, this is, of course, RLUSD. This is my other question to you. You look at, this is just market cap right now. It's somewhat stuck right there around 300 million. You compare this to other, stable coins out there, even PayPal to a certain extent, if you go down the ranking. Obviously, Tether, Circle leading the pack. But do you think that is too slow in terms of growth and uptake, or is it just a situation where we haven't seen enough exchanges and entities around the industry embrace it as of yet?
I think that's it. I think your latter part of that is exactly right. We're just now getting out of this lawsuit, and now everybody waiting for the actual full. I mean, I know a real USD's launched, but we're looking to see it get launched in mass at the tune of Hidden Road, right,
Yeah.
and beyond. And for me, I think when you start seeing that proliferation of adoption, DeFi is going to take care of itself. I think that becomes like a byproduct of a healthy network with clear rules to the road, legislation's been passed, and then I think everything kind of serves itself at that point, and it just really starts taking off like nobody would ever thought it would.
Well, you got to look at the stablecoin metrics over here on RLUSD, and just to show you the ledger, versus Ethereum, it's kind of been flat, but it could open up in terms of market cap and growth. It's definitely an opportunity, I think, with stablecoins, which leads me to my next point, and that is that, remember, we had the stablecoin bill stall last week, didn't make it through. Elizabeth Warren was successful again to round up enough Democrats to vote no. But now what we're finding is this right here. Community bankers are having a fly-in this week, and this is where community bankers now are possibly to blame here to cause the stablecoin bills to possibly be slowed down. And this is my theory, is that when you look at community banks looking at where the potential growth is, if a stablecoin bill gets enacted where it really opens it up, there's going to be all sorts of new, whether it's neobanks, other banks, obviously entities like, whether it's Coinbase or even Robinhood or others out there, even Kraken with their own. This is going to really put a lot of pressure on these banks. So it could be the last ditch effort for the banking system to try to thwart crypto and stablecoins. Do you think they're going to be successful?
I don't. And I think you've got it pegged perfectly. I think this is exactly what we've been fighting this entire time. I think you've got it spot on, but I don't think that they're going to be successful. And the reason I don't is actually quite scary. And it's because of the situation the US dollar sits as the world reserve currency. Yeah. And I think you just look at the recent trips of President Trump going to the Middle East, where we have the petrodollar agreement that elevates the US dollar as the world reserve currency, which also happens to be a place where we just got a license at Ripple that is clearing them for use for payments in that same region. Yeah. I don't find these things to be mutually exclusive. I find them to be in cooperation and falling in line of how you're implementing a new system. I believe that stablecoins are so important. And I had this to the XRP Las Vegas conference 24 last year. I sat on stage with the Honorable Christian Carlo, and we had a absolute incredible conversation about stablecoins. And I floated to him, I said, am I right to think that these stablecoins act as a bulkhead to soak up the hyperinflated bonds that will be coming back home because of the countries that want to dump them. And that's your new use case to replace the petrodollar agreement. So we don't need the oil from another country, or we don't need to wake up or go to bed every night wondering if they're still going to honor that agreement exclusively, which, by the way, they started not to. Right. So, so it's interesting to me when I see that. And that's the kind of conversations that's happening on XRP Las Vegas stages. Right. And it'll happen again this year. And we'll have the Honorable Cristiano Carlo again there this year. And that's why I say that this was, what's funny to me, Paul, is that they stonewalled this bill, the left side of the aisle did primarily. And they did that after being in committee when they were the ones that actually did the revisions and then drafted it through committee, giving it the approval, knowing that it would get the floor vote that was needed. So it's political grandstanding in my eyes, so they could just show that we don't like that Trump's family is buying into crypto before having the legislation passed.
Well, you said a lot of interesting things that I think people have to follow along, and that is none of this is by chance. I think a lot of this is by architecture, whether it's an orchestra being played out right now. You've got Scott Bessent, David Sachs. Those two guys are strategically positioned, obviously, for negotiating deals. And back to your point of when you look at U.S. Treasuries being bought globally, the potential of repatriating some of that now here in the United States is going to put a lot less pressure on the United States and continue to increase the U.S. dollar as a reserve, because you have a stablecoin-backed treasury that is now starting to open up. And imagine the number of countries that this is going to open up it to, just to be able to hold that U.S. dollar in your little digital wallet. This is going to be fantastic.
Paul, I want to give you a little scenario because I know you'll just love it. So you have Ripple with the real USD, right? You have XRP itself. The real USD adoption on the new digital on-chain economy is going to draw more liquidity to the network. So that way there's more privileged position for XRP to start to make markets on the back end.
Right.
And that's going to be amazing, right? But what if the government decides this technology is so good, Paul, that they say, you know what, we actually want to hold XRP in a digital asset stockpile where they can, obtain it and sell it, but they have to acquire it in a budget neutral way. So what if they start offering U.S. Treasury digital asset bonds for Bitcoin, XRP, ADA, U.S. domiciled assets, like wartime bonds, right? And then let the people buy them, they acquire them budget neutral, but better than that, the U.S. Treasury could deem it so important, or the government could come in and every month when the XRP escrow comes out, they could buy it, issue Ripple U.S. Treasury bonds, which they need to mint real USD, and then take the XRP, put it in the digital asset stockpile, and then control the price the same way they do oil.
Well, this is the thing. Yeah, that's a reset. Yeah, this is what Trump is talking about, is getting a reset, even with China, if you look at the reset of trade agreement. But of course, China being one of the largest holders of U.S. Treasuries, all of this plays into weakening other countries into almost in a back way, I won't say a backhanded way, but definitely a strategic way to get them to hold U.S. Treasuries via stablecoins that are now going to be proliferated around 70, 80 countries, maybe by year end. So this stablecoin bill is very important, and it's so important. I think, August, of course, is the deadline. We're going to be watching that very closely. We'll probably be talking about this out there at the XRP Las Vegas event. So if you guys aren't going, you pay attention, because there's going to be a lot of stuff that comes out of there for sure. Hey, Bradley, it's been great having you on the show. Thank you so much for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, man.
You bet. All right, you guys, if you're not in the Diamond Circle, get in right now. That's our own private group where you guys can jump in, get a lot more information from us. We drop an email, kind of keeps you up to date here if you miss something here on the YouTube channel. Of course, if you're not on our Telegram group, that's where you can communicate with me directly. And I actually work with you guys, talk to you guys about different assets, where the theories that we have on our research team, what we like, what we don't like. Join down below. It's very easy. And follow me out there on X, @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.